Okay, so good evening, friends. I welcome you all to this very special evening talk. Today, we are here with an interesting and very relevant topic that will be of great interest to all professionals. And the topic, as you know, is coaching for leadership resilience. To speak on this topic, we have with us two very distinguished guests, Dr. Brian Brook, who's the owner of Go High Now and AVP Lincoln Financial Group. And our second speaker is Dr. Usha Rajagopalan, who's the founder and CEO of Aura Consulting, and she's a corporate trainer and a researcher. So I welcome you both, Dr. Brian and Dr. Usha Rajagopalan. Thank you very much for agreeing to, address on a ISTD platform. So I would now request Mr. Mukesh Jain, our chapter chairperson, to say a few words and welcome our guests. Over to you, Mr. Jain.
Thank you, Pratima ji. A very good evening, friends. I, on behalf of Management Committee of ISTD Delhi chapter, welcome you all to this very special evening lecture by the members, on a very important topic, coaching for leadership resilience by two eminent speakers, Dr. Brian Rook and Dr. Usha Rajgopalan. Friends, Indian Society for Training and Development, ISTD has celebrated its Golden Jubilee year recently. ISTD maintained a large chapters network for more than 46 chapters and 9,000 institutional and individual members. The ISTD is affiliated to IFTDO USA and RTDO Manila. The society publishes a quarterly journal, Indian Journal for Training and Development. ISTD conducts a PG diploma in training and development, a correspondence course through distance learning of 18 months duration for the purpose of recruitment to superior posts under the central government and PSUs. ISTD organizes programs, regional and national conferences, train the trainer certifications program, both at chapter and national level. Friends, you can enroll yourself paying less than 10,000 rupees for life membership. For more details, please log in to istd.in or istddelhi.in. I once again welcome Dr. Brian and Dr. Usha, our presidents, emeritus, past presidents, chapter chairpersons, NC members, senior members, and friends from ISTD, NIPM, NHRD diploma, ISTD diploma student, faculty member, and students from various institutions. I wish you all for a wonderful evening and joyful weekend. Namaskar. Over to Pratima ji.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jain. Okay, so let's get going. So, friends, what is resilience? Resilience is the ability to withstand adversity and bounce back from difficult life events, right? So this pandemic has shown us all, has shown the world, that the world as we know has shifted. And our corporate leaders need to handle this challenge with great resilience. We will learn about this from our speakers and the approaches and the methods which will work for the corporate leaders to demonstrate this resilience. So before I, request the speakers to begin, I would request Mr. Ajay Sahu to introduce the speakers formally.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Pratima ji. Namaskar.
Thank you.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A very, very warm welcome to today's evening talk. 13,568. Yes, you heard it right. 13,568 kilometers is the distance which separates our two speakers, Dr. Brian from Indiana and Dr. Usha from Lucknow. Welcome both the speakers. Thank you for joining in. Dr. Brian, apart from the distance, it also separates us by almost 9.5 hours. I just heard from Brian that he just had his breakfast and it is 8:30 a.m. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Right, Brian. Okay, so Brian is Assistant Vice President uh, training in Lincoln Group, Lincoln Financial Group. And he joined the group in 2018, and he looks after the training of almost 10,000 employees. And Dr. Brian is a doctorate from North Dakota State University. And he has done his doctorate in adult and occupational education. But his interest lies in leadership and followership, on which he has delivered several international lectures in several international fora. Dr. Usha, in fact, her doctorate PhD is in leadership transformation. She's the CEO and founder of Aura Training and Consulting. So without standing between you and our eminent speakers, I would like to hand over the floor to Dr. Brian and Dr. Usha. Over to you.
Thank you. Brian, yeah, you just need to share the screen.
Yeah, is it possible to enable screen sharing?
Okay, I've just done
Here we
that.
go.
It's appropriate, yes.
All right.
So shall we start? Yes.
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm very glad to be a part of ISTD and today's program. And we had a very nice session with Brian for the past 1 week. So with the topic, if I have to go talk about the topic as coaching, resilience, and leadership. When I see this topic, I see that there are voluminous of topics like, say, leadership, resilience, coaching. So if I have to take each one of them, in single-handedly, I have to handle them because each one is in volumes. Leadership is in volume, resilience, if you have to bring in, it relates to people. So I took first is resilience. If I have to see resilience, I would go by people, I'll go by the idea, I'll go by thought, I will go by leadership, I'll go by the leader, I'll go by the organization. And then there is one more attachment to that is the coach. So there are so many elements which one needs to understand when we take up resilience as a topic. So let's go and see what is resilience. As we all know, we know that it is to bounce back. It is to rebound from crisis, from an adverse situation. Yes, but how do we do that? So is that the same in some of the other parameters also? Yes, we know that, say, in a cancer patient, he has that resilience to come back, right? So that is from within the people, we need to get that resilience. So we go further down the line to know what is resilience. I've been seeing a lot of research work which was done on resilience. And if I have to see it in terms of the concept itself, we need to understand that resilience comes from the reflection of the past, the events, whichever has occurred, because it is not the current state. It is a state wherein, we have come from, where we are and where we want to go. And if you have to take the leader's standpoint, and if the resources are deployed, whatever resources which has been deployed is going to be very less, then the demonstration of the resilience is going to be very less. And the third most point is when value is kept next to resilience or any of the factor, we would surely choose value and we cannot compromise on that. So that time also resilience fails. So what can we do for that? We have to think because people are involved in it. And when a lot of research has taken place, but how resilience has been researched is, first is medical science. You will get a lot of researches related to resilience in medical science because even in a cancer patient, how does he get out of it? How does he bounce back? That is from the individual point of view. He will have some support, but from the individual point of view, how has he come from? And in a military base, as we all know, soldiers need to exhibit a lot of resilience. But it is not in one instance. It is in all the instances they have to show back that resilience in them. Okay, it is all done with medical science and military base. But if I have to take it in the organizational context, how do I have to take it? Is it the same or is it going to be different? let's see how it is in organizational context. In the organization, the resilience factor, the single most factor as resilience will be taken into structured skills approach, quantitative approach, the solution focused approach, and cognitive behavior approach. In structural skills, they'll take all the skills into analysis, say tolerance or self-acceptance, and what is the thought process. So all these skills are taken and they take it as an approach and they derive a conclusion. In quantitative approach, again, the same factor, say a principal component analysis will be done, all the factors will be taken and the research will be done and it will be based on the quantitative factors. Yes, this has relation to that of the other factor. So that will go by that. In solution focused, it is a method, it is like a therapy. They will find a solution. It is not based on a conversation method, but to understand what the other feels. So it is on that basis. Cognitive behavior approach is one of the most widely followed approach because it is related to people. It is related to their thoughts. It is related to their thinking. It is related to their ideas. So cognitive behavioral approach is the most widely followed approach. But for today, I have a question to the audience. What do you expect as a psychological component in an employee? Whenever you take in for a recruitment or in a situation when you are in a team or when a decision has to be made or when there is a situation, say in 6 months time, it's a deadline and there are only few people are there in the number of, counting in the team and they have to work hard. How will you go about that? So research has been done for that also, and they have coined a term called psychological capability, which is PsyCap, which says that 4 elements which we totally need while in a resolution organization is hope, optimism, self-confidence, and the most important is resilience. So we need all these 4 components if we have to take the psychological capabilities into consideration when we are going to check in with a candidate. And further down the line, if we have to go, what are the other models which we have for coaching? Yeah, we have many models of coaching. I think Brian will take it from here.
So we, as we understand from an initial perspective of what coaching is the idea of being able to, it's giving somebody the skill set to replicate an action more over and over again. There's an adage that goes, give a person a fish, feed him for a day, teach him to fish, feed him for life. That's really what we're trying to do with coaching, is making sure that we're equipping them with those skills. And there's a multitude of different ways that we can coach. There's the GROW coaching model, the group coaching model, STEPA, OSCAR, action-centered and directive coaching model. And all of those coaching models are built to have the same kind of outcome or get you to the same kind of outcome, but it's a different approach because as a coach, you're going to have different ways that you operate, different techniques that you use that you're more comfortable with and more skilled with. So you might find that one of these models works best with you. The other side of that is the coachees. So they might learn in a different way. And you might want to use a different approach or a different coaching model depending on your the coachee and their learning abilities and learning type and learning preferences. So we want to look at a multitude of these. But for today, specifically in this case, we're going to look at OSCAR, the OSCAR coaching model. So we'll use the OSCAR coaching model as an example of how we would navigate instilling resilience into our leaders. So the OSCAR coaching model, OSCAR is an acronym that stands for outcome, situation, choices, actions, and review. Excuse me. And just a reminder that with coaching, since we're trying to build that skill set into them or get them to build that skill set, coaching is really designed around asking questions. We do a lot more listening in coaching than we do in actually directing. Again, we're not trying to give them the answers. We need them to learn how to come to the answers. We need them to learn how to build those skill sets in themselves so that the next time they're faced with adversity, they can still go through that process of building in that confidence, building in those skill sets that they need to come out successful out of this situation too. So from a coaching perspective, when we're applying this OSCAR coaching model specifically to resilience, what we would be first looking at is from the outcome perspective. And outcome is really understanding the goals, having those leaders understand what those goals are. So we would ask them questions about what goal are you working on right now, or what's the goal for the work or efforts that you're putting in now. And you're listening for particular types of responses. You want to hear them really be able to drive down or drill down to their goal having an organizational impact. They should understand that. If you get responses, for example, if you're interviewing or if you're coaching a marketing leader and they say, well, the goal is to send out 2,000 emails a month. Why are we sending out 2,000? What's so important about sending out 2,000 emails a month? What happens if you don't get those out? What happens if you get those out? What's the ideal outcome? What does success look like? These are the kinds of questions we would ask in coaching to help them drill down and start to see the real goal that they need to have in mind. Sometimes they'll already have the goal established, but oftentimes they typically stop short of really knowing the extent of that goal, and it's more superficial. So you want to help them drill down. And the reason being too is once we can actually diagnose the real goal, that opens us up for a lot more innovation and understanding how can we get there from different ways. So having that key goal identified helps us in establishing some foundation or focal point for innovation to occur. The next one in line is situation. And you can think of situation really as taking inventory of the tools that you have. So you want to ask the coach or the leaders, as a coach, you want to ask the leaders questions such as, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What values do you have? Going back to what Dr. Usha was saying earlier, you want to identify those values. Who do you have that's available on your team that can contribute to this? What other teams have impact and contribute as well? What you're trying to do is help them start understanding what they have in their toolbox as resources so that they can start making decisions. That comes into play with their action planning on what they can do with who they can do with what they can do with the tools they have, where they need to be cautious and knowing the weaknesses that occur, the risks that are there. It starts making them start to expand their concept of here's the goal, here's what we have to get there. And the next line is going through choices. And choices, what that means is we're wanting them to come up with plans, and we're wanting them to think of even alternative plans, because the idea is what happens if something goes wrong? How stable are we in the ability to be able to pivot? If it's about resilience and we're coaching resilience, that's something that we've got to keep in mind. Resilience is rebounding. So that means a mishap happens or adversity occurs. We need them to be prepared for that. So when we're specifically coaching resilience, we really want them thinking of alternative plans, because that's how we stabilize the individual or the leader and reinforce the confidence in them and the ability to bounce back by having a multitude of plans, knowing the skills and strengths and the resources that they have to pivot in different scenarios. The next phase is asking questions. Then we want to start driving questions on the actions of it. So the actions are once the plan is being executed, then we start looking at what kind of actions, like what kind of improvement needs to be occurring. Is everything going according to plan? Usually it doesn't go according to plan. We have to adjust and modify things on the fly. This is where we want to really drive that part home, is asking them, where are we seeing some hiccups? What are your plans? How are you addressing that hiccup? And do you see any barriers coming up? If they don't, does your team see any barriers? Have you asked your team barriers? Because surely somebody's going to see, there's always risks involved with any kind of plan we're executing. So we want to ask them to drill down to that, identifying where those opportunities or those gaps could be and that might show up. And we want to get them to think through how are they going to improve along the way in those cases. That's reinforcing their ability to start thinking about the breadth of the situation. And the last part is review. And this is an often overlooked component from a coaching perspective, because a lot of times you get job well done, great job, high fives, have a good day, we're done. But the review part of it is really reinforcing this as a tool to be able to go and apply it in future settings. So we want to ask them questions from a coaching perspective of, what were some of the hiccups that you learned that came up along the way that you weren't prepared for? What can you do next time? What are you planning on doing next time to prepare for that? What worked in this that you can apply in the next case? And start asking them questions about how they're driving this into their next role or next issue or project that they're working towards. The idea is to get them to reinforce the actions that they went through and building this skill set out. I need them to replicate this scenario and this other type of scenario and get the same kind of outcome. And these scenarios might look different, but the act of building resilience is the same in here as it is in here. So we need them to build this and replicate it here. And that's what you're trying to do as a coach. So the reviewing piece of it is very important in being able to hand them off or set them up and equip them with the right skills moving forward so that they can continue building that. I want to pause there for any questions as we kind of the coaching component before we dig into the next section here. Okay, fantastic. Well, Dr. Usha, you've got it here with looking at the coaching psychological review.
Yes. So after the coaching model, the pause was for to just think what could the model bring in as in resilience in the leadership. So we went across a lot of case studies and we have cut short and we have given it for the the audience to have a look at it. So there were 8 senior leaders participated in the research program where they were coached by 7 different coaches, because coaching is one-on-one basically. So the senior leaders were interviewed by the researcher to identify if they had perceived any relation between coaching they had and their experience with resilience. They even stopped it for an year to see how the resilience has grown. And in the 1-year delay was designed to truly test the resilience over a period of time. So it was a big case. We have cut short it and have given it. So down the line, when after the case was done and after the coaching was done, they were asked to narrate it as to what was the result. So the results was given as answers by the participants. Yes, the next one. The first participant, you can also go through like by Jack. So one of the contestant, one of the participant who has answered it, he says that I think a part of how the coaching helped sort of, you can also read it on your own and, I can wait for some responses also. So he says that all that it was done was coherent, quite consistent for me. And he says that there was a sense of validation or clarity really because, you realize yourself. And that probably is a good idea or no, and it's the right time for that it's not a priority. So can anybody tell me what he has ultimately got after the coaching session? Something resonates you as to what ultimately Jack is trying to say over here. Yes, so I can go with that. So he says that there was a sense of validation or clarity. So he got some ideas, and the first element of resilience which the participants got was reclaiming their self-belief. So what exactly happened was the coach has started asking a lot of questions. So it was question based, as Brian was telling us, like everything in the coaching session will be on question based, but it's just only not questions. It stimulates ideas. It is an intentional navigation to bring about all the thoughts from the candidates. It reflects and responds. And a lot of ideas comes, but ideas doesn't stop over here. It will have an execution plan also. So the past strengths are gotten, then it is an output of feelings. It is not only just feelings, it doesn't stop with that. It has validation of ideas, just as Jack narrated. Then they had gain of clarity. So it all ended up in building that self-confidence. So he himself narrated in one instance that whatever he has lost and over the period of time has been gained by the coaching session. And that's how his resilience has also built up. The second point was, one of the other participants has written that I thought I was resilient before, but I feel now that I was fairly brittle resilience, and that was fine that if I could just keep powering through. I think I have now got more tools in the toolkit to enable me to do that and to recognize when I need to get some out of them. So there was some kind of a recognition in them as to when it has to be used, why it has to be used, and why I have not used. Basically, the learning part was why I have not used. So they say that, to need my own time to rest, relax, recover, recharge. So this my time is very, very necessary. And they said that after the coaching session only we were able to get that. Yes, I was going wrong in this. Yes, I have to. Yes, the digging is very, very necessary. And the point here is the resilient factor which we have got is learning. But learning has come from generation of ideas, generation of new thoughts by the questioning session and with the support of the coach. So the coach and the coachee had a learning process through insights and awareness. And to my surprise, they have not got any separate tool to, go in for the resilience. They have got to know about their self. They have got to know about the self-acceptance. And in turn, it is going to help them in reclaiming the self-belief. That was point number 1. So all the points are actually interrelated. And the third one is, from the answers, we are able to get the points because it is all narration. Whatever they have felt, they have written. The third one is by George. He says that the ability to see it from others people's perspective, The role of coaching would be to throw up those kind of questions. Sometimes some of the suggestions that I came up with, even if I didn't act on them, made me feel like I knew that I had that course of action open to me. Yes, we all have that, you all will agree with me that at one point of time, we might know what to be done, but we may not be able to do that. So what do we do? What do we do at that time? We need a coach. We need some person to share. But who is that person in an organization? You cannot have a colleague or a leader or some other person from the verticals. You cannot have them. You need to have a coach at that point of time to broaden your thinking skills. So that's what is the point number 3, which is seeking the wider perspective. So the coach has helped them by stimulating more ideas, and ultimately they had broader perspective. Okay, what happens when you have broader perspective? When you are under pressure, that's where when you need resilience. When you are under pressure, when any person, we will only have a narrow tunnel vision. We cannot have a broader picture. So that's where the coach helped them to get the broader picture by stimulating more ideas, the thought process, and regain their perspective. So everywhere they were regaining their own strengths. So that's why the past strengths connect with that of the present situation to gain what has to happen in the future. And I have one question to the audience as to, does the leader accept others' ideas and perspective? As in a leader, there are many leaders over here. And as a leader in an organization, if I have to think, the leader has, he has to be entwined with that of the senior professionals and that of his subordinates. And with his title in the organization, does he have the time to think about himself first of all? And because he's with his team or with his organization or doing something else for the organization, so he doesn't have the time for himself. And where will he go and think about other things? So the lead, and how to accept others' ideas and perspectives. So it should be a no. And after the coaching session, it has broadened up, and they have accepted their other ideas and perspectives. So it had options for repair, retool, and relearn. The fourth point is, after the coaching session, the participants have told that because sometimes when things are very complex, it's helpful to have that external surrounding board to help clarify your ideas. So what is that external surrounding board? And this external surrounding board, what they say that it was neutral, non-threatening, and not directly connecting to work, and allows you to think through what's going on in other contexts in a fairly safe way. There were very many adjectives in this answer. So what is it exactly? Can somebody tell me as to, what has happened over here? It is what has happened is the person has been in a very conducive environment. He was able to speak out. He was able to vocalize his points, and he was able to come out with what was pressurizing him or what was stopping him from being resilient. So the point which we have got from this as a resilient factor is supportive relationship. There are many things which we need to understand over here. Is the support could have been given by the leader, could have been given by the colleagues. But as a coach, what was the advantage was neutrality and impartiality. The coach had been neutral and impartial. They had a safe and confidential environment. There wasn't any political landscape which could hinder them. It was an external coach. So that was the adding value. So if you have to have a look at in-house coach and that of an external coach, people are supporting for external coach, because there is no boundary of letting all that you feel to the coach. There is honest feedback. And these are all we have not put. These are all answers from the case. These are all the answers which the people have answered for that particular instance. So the leaders became, the most important point for the leader to be resilient was the leader became aware of their own shortcoming and errors. Isn't that an important point for being resilient? And it has opened up space for him to open up and bring in all the points which he had in his mind all these years, maybe try to disclose, which was difficult earlier. So all these were the advantages of being as a supportive relationship. And the next point, by the answer of the people, I couldn't stop myself from giving only one answer of the participants, because all the three were connecting so well with the point that he says that I think I came out of talking in true and reflecting and refining. He had some reflection, he had some refining on that. And he says that suppose you set aside time to problem. Yes, we do that. We do set time. But what happens is, whereas you might just be thinking, we might not implement it. That's where is the point which we need to think that to know and to do is entirely different. To think and to implement is entirely different. So that's where the coach had a major role in putting it on implementation. Whereas if you set discrete time aside to focus on things, do we just ask yourself, do we give that discrete time for our, problems or solving it or being resilient? We don't do that. We just keep on moving. But if we think of the past, and if there is a person who can understand that and give us a schedule on to how to work about it, wouldn't that be nice? So, and the next person says that, Amanda says, and I think it just made me think about why I was thinking like that. See, she never had any other thought. She was just thinking introspection has happened, and she says that why I was like that, why I have behaved like that, and you are thinking that you can't do that job. So I think it made me think more. So that was the fifth element which we have got, and one more answer which one knows that the right thing to do is to reflect regularly. So can we do that individually? It cannot happen. We cannot reflect regularly on an interval basis. Okay, in 3 months time I will go and look back. No, it doesn't happen. So you need to have a coach, you need to have a schedule, you need to have a pattern, you need to have that supportive system, that collaborative system, which only coaching can give for a leader. That too for other aspects is fine, but for being resilient, we need to have that. And that's how thinking aspects came in. And what engaged them was reflective thinking, and that logged and protected on schedules. That a person has to be there as a mentor. You need to say that, yes, you need to bring back all those whichever I have asked for, and target it for themselves, not for others. And meta reflection, which says that we have a meta analysis in research, which says that it looks in all angles of the research. So that is meta reflection and helped in reclaiming the self belief. So from all these 5 points, what we got as from the coaching is, these were not individual factors. These were factors which are twined up together, entangled together, and one reflects the other, one helps the other. Just as thinking space, reclaimed self-belief will be related. Supportive system is related to all. Learning will help for reclaiming belief, and seeing the widest perspective will have all effects. So these were the 5 resilient factors after the coaching session, which participants have got for being more resilient for the leadership and also for the team and also as an individual. So further down, we have the coaching resilience advantages. So what are the advantages which we had is, we had a lot of advantages, but these are the major vocalization. Do we do that generally? No. Do we do that with others? Do we do that in the family? We don't do that with the family. We don't do that with the family because we don't want to spoil this time. So vocalization, validation of feeling, which is very, very important. Somebody has to come and say, yes, you are right. That is very much needed. Thoughts and ideas, and that too a neutral person, not somebody whom you know. So open and honest reviews they had got a lot of credibility, and the leaders were able to. This is one of the most important point which I felt when I was working. We were not able to separate themselves from that of the organization, because what they will think, what if I do this, that separation is very much needed. Proactive approach, and apart from the other interventional approaches which we have in OD, this is considered to be one of the most acceptable approach. Why? Because it's more one is proactive, and other is you have collaborative support. You have a support system, and that's why it is a more acceptable intervention. And it's a narrative technique. Narration, you all know. It comes with the thoughts. You arrange it. You tell him, and it blows up. So narration, the narrative technique is also helpful, and getting out of the suppression of thoughts. These are the last 2 points is also very, very necessary, because where will we go and tell our thoughts, and we to get out of the suppression is very much needed. And emotional upheaval is disastrous, if you have to say, and letting it go is very, very necessary. And furthermore, we have the measures. I think Brian will take it further. This is from a research background, which we have got as validation. Yes, Brian.
Absolutely. So really extending on what Dr. Usha was talking about and seeing those interviews, the fascinating thing about those interviews is that we're seeing that's how they're expressing how they felt with it. So they're feeling like they're getting this, like they're building this resilience, especially that year time in between. They feel validated in that part of it. But what this study does is actually literally validates and quantifies those measures as being true. And we'll see that part of it. So what we're going to be looking at is it's called an ANCOVA analyses. And so it's looking at covariance. So we're looking at the measures of averages and means, or averages between these the participants and the instruments being used to tease out these different components of resilience. I won't go down the entire list of the bullet points here, but they're present here, and I believe the PowerPoint will be available afterwards. But you can see the different instruments that were actually used to be able to specifically identify those pieces. So let's jump into the measures. And there's a lot going on here, so I'm going to walk you through just a basic overview of how to read this chart. So first thing I want to point attention to is we have a couple of acronyms here that are evident on this chart as well. So PAR is a Professional Adult Resilience Program, and what that was is that's a program that was built where coaches were deployed to go and actually coach resilience into individuals. And they did measures in different time groups. And a comparison group is a group that did not get the coaching on resilience, and they took the same test or same assessments during the same time frames. So we'll see here, we'll keep that in mind. So this is the group that got the coaching. This is the group that did not. So what we're going to look over here is I want to draw attention first to these three columns of these ridiculous amounts of numbers, right? So what we're looking at here is first is time 1, time 2, and time 3. These are the different time points in which they took a measure. They paused from the coaching and took a measure to see, are we having any kind of impact based on the coaching and resilience. And so this number here on the left, well, let me move down here. So M and SD. M stands for mean, or you can think of that as average. SD stands for standard deviation. So mean would be the average score of, if you had 10 participants, the average score of 10 participants. In this case, there were 304. So there would be an average of 304 participants. And this is the score that they got on average on that assessment. And then the standard deviation is really, you can think of that as how clustered they are around this, the mean. So the smaller that number is, the smaller the standard deviation, the more close that all of them feel that there's a consistency of people feeling the same way. The larger the number, it's pretty broad. You still have an average, but the numbers scores are all kind of scattered across the spectrum. So we want to look for, when we start looking at impacts, we want to start looking at that mean. Does the mean moving, and does the standard deviation move and cluster up closer with that mean? We want to kind of start looking for those things whenever we're doing analyses. So in this case, what we can start looking at is, this is a stress of measure, our measure of stress. And we're looking at the resilience program and the comparison group. So the resilience program, there you can see their stress levels actually dropping from 14 down to 5. So the stress dropped drastically over that period of time. And you can even see the standard deviation starts to tighten up too. So we're clustering together around that lower number. That's a really positive impact that we're seeing from this on lowering stress. And we look at the comparison group, and the stress actually increased over that period of time. So that's a really good indicator of the impact of what resilience coaching can actually have on our stress. Anxiety, we're seeing the same trend as well. For the resilience program, from 6.95 down to 4.6, and we're also seeing a tighter clustering in the standard deviation. That's a really powerful impact that we're seeing, and it's increasing on the comparison group. So again, anxiety is impacted by this. Depression is impacted drastically. It cuts in half. I mean, so we're seeing that, and again, the clustering with the standard deviation, we're seeing more clustering around the mean, where it's increased slightly within the comparison group. Self-efficacy, I'll talk a little bit to that. So, because some of these are actually showing a different kind of approach. So, well, optimism and self-efficacy will look similarly. We're looking for that number to increase, and we're seeing that it does increase in optimism. It increases in comparison group as well, but not as much as it did in as a resilience program. And we're seeing here the coping self-efficacy. We're seeing that, and I would argue that self-efficacy is probably the most leading indicator from a research perspective, that I would argue is going to be pretty darn related to resilience. Is that if that self-efficacy isn't there, you're going to have a hard time having even the self-belief or self-confidence to bounce back with that. So you can actually see that it increases there and it decreases with the comparison group. a common discussion point for the past 8 to 10 years that we've been hearing in organizations, and we'll hear about it a lot more as we have hybrid work models, but the work from home, the work-life balance. That's something, so family satisfaction and work satisfaction, we're seeing work satisfaction increase. It actually decreased with the comparison group. The family satisfaction increased, and it actually decreased slightly with the comparison group. So we're seeing, and even still here, the work-life fit, it's improving and in the resilience program, but it's decreasing in the comparison group. That's a common trend that we really need to be paying attention to, because it's a topic of conversation within organizations. And I would assure you, this is going to be a deal. This is going to be something that organizations are going to be dealing with as we're looking at how to navigate working from home, the hybrid models of working from home compared to working to work, because there's going to be a comparison. People will start to be able to compare day to day. I like working at home better than I like working at work. I feel like my work-life balance is off kilter now. There's going to be we're going to see some conversations come up with that, and this is a good indicator of what we can do to help mitigate some of those risks. So the last couple of things that I want to point to here is looking at exhaustion. So exhaustion, we're seeing it decrease as well, and the vigor increase. Those are really big measures that are going to be leading indicators for the success of that individual with being able to be resilient. The last part of the measure that I want to just draw attention to, there's a lot moving on this chart as well. The things that I want to point to is just these asterisks and symbols after the numbers. So what this means is you can look down here at this legend, and just a quick understanding of statistics. When we call what we call a p-value, what we're saying with a p-value is the probability that this just happened by chance and not because of some intervention. So what this says down here, if you look at these three asterisks, the probability that this happened just by chance is less than 0.001%. We would in a research area, we would say it's going to this happened because of this intervention. We have a lot of confidence in this. The probability of that chance is just too minuscule. This is very likely that it happened based on the coaching of resilience in this case. So coping self-efficacy has this strong correlation. Work-life balance, as we were talking about, has a strong probability, that strong connection and relationship here. So we're seeing, again, these values here, with this probability that we're seeing, the p-values are incredible with this. Every one of them, with the exception of work family spillover, didn't have the actual significance. But other than that, and we can see it here as well, other than that, we have significant impact across the board with these factors. So quantitatively, we can say this does happen. The coaching resilience does improve that individual. It improves these components of the individual in the workplace as well. So we're not just getting a resilient leader, but we're improving all these aspects of their workplace and their work experience, which reinforces the resilience component. So I'll hand it back over to Dr. Usha to take us home.
Yes. So ultimately, if we have to say coaching, how does it end up in leadership resilience? It's a valuable vehicle. Why is it builds the intervention, building intervention for resilience? It's a learning vehicle. It's an experiential method, which any other method will not be experiential. It's a support system. It's a collaborative system. It has got three other major points, which are reporting structure. You have quality assessments and that supervision system, which makes coaching the most important vehicle for resilience and leadership. To end up, we have to say that if you want to have resilience and leadership through coaching, it is for transformation and that of the transition which we are looking out for. So that's all we have for today. And Brian, can you just look into the chat for questions?
Okay, thank you very much.
I'm so sorry. I haven't been keeping up with the chat. There are questions
in the chat box. Yeah,
pretty much
so
you will help
share
with the questions.
I'll share the questions with you. Anyone can answer. So the first question is from Mr. Madan, and his question is that what is the difference between ICF / Erickson and Oscar coaching? what is the difference between ICF, Ericsson,
Uh,
and Oscar coaching? This is the question.
So there, I don't know much about the ICF component. Whenever I think of ICF, are you referring to, just for clarity, are you referring to the actual, the coaching credential, the coaching
Yes.
school, ICF? Okay. So ICF, with the actual coaching school itself, what they do is, it's almost, so Oscar coaching is just a model. It's a model that anybody can implement, whether you're a leader, whether you're a coach, even coaches, even the IC coaches in ICF will implement the ICF or the Oscar model. They'll be taught how to implement the model. So the Oscar part is just, think of Oscar as a process to get you from point A to point B. That's what that part is. ICF is an actual institution that gives you the skill set. It gives you the educational background to know how to apply that in what scenario. Ericsson will be similar in that regard too. Those are actual accrediting bodies or institutions. And something that I will advocate for them is that I do think the coaching credential, coaching is a lot of times coaching is misunderstood as counseling, and that's why people will give answers. And coaching really is an artwork. It's a very difficult task to do, and there's I mean, a lot of times, even from I've delivered several coaching things before, or I've coached for years, and there's times whenever I get in, sometimes even feel like I'm in over my head because I can't get inside the mind to help get them to think this the right way. So these institutions equip you with those skills to better be able to understand that, and they do it based on an hour-based practice. So you're actually having to take on case studies and work on coaching those individuals and log hours of that so that you carry these credentials of, if somebody's going to hire me, there's validation that Brian has coached before and has used these models in the right scenarios before, so that there's trust with that. It gives a higher value to that. So if I'm working with your organization, what differentiates me from another person that's coaching when you don't know me? If you're an external coach, this gives some sense of validation to that.
Yeah, ICF is a certification which we get, and with that we will come to know about the tools and the techniques. But there are three things. One is certification, one is model which you apply, and the other is the approach. So we have talked about the approach also, and we have talked about the models also. We just took one model for today, so that's the difference between ICF and the model.
All right. Okay, so the second question is by Mr. Yashwant Chauhan. And the question is that how can an individual explore and learn about coaching and contribute to the profession? Are there any specific competencies one must have to become a coach? Can you please recommend some of the best organizations for learning coaching to start the coaching journey? So it's a long question. If you want, I can break it down. Shall I break it down?
I think we can answer that question.
Right,
I think we can get down to the drill down to what they're asking. Dr. Usha, you can go first if you want. I've got some thoughts on it too. But.
Yeah, I have the answer for the competency. The number 3, which he has asked for the institutions wherein we can get, that we need to search and say, because he has asked for the best. So we can contact you for that. But for the competencies, the first thing is active listening, relationship management, trust. How do you, have trust between the participants? That is very, very difficult to gain the trust in them. And the learning process, you need to know how the learning process takes place. Probing, questioning technique. Then values, you have to handle values. So you need to know the techniques, how to handle values, and you need to also tell them what is the action plan. So these are the competencies I feel, a coach should have.
Okay.
And to add to that, I think sometimes getting access to go to the International Coaching Federation to get accredited with that or get the credentials, that can be pretty costly. And if you don't have an organization that's willing to spend or able to spend, in the United States, the lowest cost is $8,000. That's a lot of money. Most people don't have that. And most organizations aren't always willing to pay that amount of money, because the accreditation doesn't sit with the organization, it sits with the individual. So if I left my company, I would still have those credentials anywhere I go. that company would be out that $8,000. So there's some hesitancy with some of that. So if you're having, my first suggestion on being able to build that would be exactly what Dr. Usha is talking about, building those competencies. You're going to be building that in an accredited area anyways. So familiarize yourself with those. I would say first, like these accrediting bodies are accredited for a reason. They're good. They're really good at this. They crank out incredible coaches. But if you can't afford that, there are books out there that help provide the background of it. And sometimes if you're willing to be the student and to do the study, learning these competencies that Dr. Usha talked about, being able to master those and being able to read, there's a lot of literature on coaching. Some people can take that and actually apply that very well. And I mean, think about it from a leadership perspective. There's some people that are just naturally develop this leadership skill that are good at it. And you think like, man, you must have gone through so many programs. They didn't go through any. They're just good. They're receptive. They have the right things in place for it. Some people are able to do that with coaching, but they have a diligent approach to wanting to be good at it. Those good leaders that are naturally good want to be good at it, and they have a diligent approach to that. So sometimes if you can't afford the costly accreditation, then I would argue really dig into the literature. But we know scientifically that it has to be tied to a process for them to retain that information. And that's where, again, I can't echo enough what Dr. Usha was saying. That's a really good question. A lot of us have that. I mean, everybody that's worked in training and development and leadership development, before you ever get any kind of investment from your organization, we're asking that question too. I want to coach. I want to help them grow. How do I do it? Right? That, I mean, we all have that. That's a really good question.
So one question I would like to ask is that in which situations, an organization should go in for an external coach rather than, asking their own leaders to coach the junior managers?
This we discussed.
I know. I was just thinking that we talked for a while about this, didn't we? If you want to go first, you can, or I can, whichever one you want, Dr. Usha.
It all depends on the situation, first of all, right? So it has to be proactive. The first one is at the most, I wanted to take it as a proactive situation because it should not go beyond. Resilience comes, when you are under a pressure or when you are under a problem. So it has to be analyzed well. And if the team suggests, they have to have a communication with that of the team also. How do they feel about having an external coach? And everybody won't say that they need to have an external coach. That is the problem. So the organization, because they will say that in-house is better because we have to have a good projection before the company, right? They cannot say that we need to have an external person. So the team members in the senior level should decide on having an external coach, and that is suggested to be better. That's how, the case has also been gone through. They have not got, I just want to answer one more question. He asked, what is the better method, Oscar, or, the other? There is no good method. They have specifically mentioned in the case, we have not followed any of the method because we were only towards the ideas. We wanted their ideas. We wanted the participant to participate. So that was the main aim for coaching. So external is always suggested in whatever we have seen.
Okay. Provided you have the budgets, right?
Yes.
That's it. That's huge.
Yeah, that's also a important point, right?
Yep.
Okay. So there's no other question on the chat box, but I would request the participants, like if they have any question, they can unmute themselves and speak. Or if you have a comment to make, please go ahead. Anybody?
Ryan, you wanted to add something to what Dr. Usha said.
For the external coaching or internal coaching?
Yes.
So something that we see over here, and Dr. Usha and I were talking about this, that most commonly the most common place to see external coaching over here is in the chief position. So chief operating officer, chief financial officer, they typically have an external coach And it's not always on an organizational budget. It's on their personal budget sometimes. It varies back and forth, but they will do that, and you'll see more years of that coach being there, not just months. They're not there for a scenario. They're a coach for them for their career, and that's because it allows them an unbiased component. Because once you get to the C-suite, there's a lot more political things and power that's involved. And so these external coaches are better able to help navigate some of that and provide that outside thought and unbiased thought on that part of it. So usually you don't see the external coach within the organization unless if they've hired a coaching company because of budget purposes, as mentioned earlier. Usually it's done in-house, but the C-suite, most of the time we start seeing external coaching there.
Okay, I have a question. Where the organization is footing the bill for an external coach. So they are the sponsors and the coachee would be the client, right? So where does the commitment of the external coach lie? Is it to the sponsor or is it to the coachee?
That's a really good question. And because you're getting into what you're getting into, and Ajay, I think that question, that's a question that takes a lot of unpacking, because you're looking at, from my first inclination is that you're looking at the character of that coach, and where their commitment lies, and you have to balance those things, and we do this in our job sometimes. What's the right thing to do for the organization? What's the right thing to do for my client? And like you said, where's my commitment? Is it to that? There's even, I'm gonna stroke Dr. Usha's ego a little bit here. That there's some research with organizational citizenship behavior that looks at an individual's commitment, whether it's to the organization or to the individual. And I bet you would. There's no real answer to that question that I can think of, but my mind starts to go down the organizational citizenship behavior to be able to determine where they would commit. But that I'm getting out of my realm of expertise, and that's into Dr. Usha's. That's a good question. That's a good question. I don't know. I know where I would commit. I would commit to the client, but But would I commit to the client if the money wasn't there?
Yeah, who pays the piper calls the tune, right?
Yeah.
So you are on a dilemma, right?
Yeah. By the way, these are the questions I live for. I love these kinds of the ones that don't have. They don't have they have an answer. It's more of a report, like it's a deep thought though. It was a good question. By the way, I'm gonna think about that all weekend.
Right. Thanks, Brad.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, we can close the session, right? So I thank you very much for a wonderful session. And I now request our Vice Chairman, Mr. D.B. Shastriji, to give his vote of thanks.
Thank you, Pratimaji. Thank you very much, Dr. Brian Rook and Dr. Usha Rajgopalan. In fact, the subject is very, very important and very interesting. And in fact, we can keep discussing it for hours together. The things which you brought are very important. For example, you mentioned about the mutual trust, the importance of reflection, the trust and values and all. And Pratimaji also put forth a very good question about budget. But I feel that it is a matter of priority. In this context, I would quote an incident that once a CFO asked the CEO that what if we spend money to train our people and they leave? So the CEO told, what if we do not train them and they stay? So the CFO was speechless. So it's all a matter of priority. And I would also like to take this opportunity to share with all, and in particular with Dr. Brian, that today happens to be a very important day in India. It is called Guru Purnima. Today is the full moon day, and this day is dedicated to the gurus, the coaches, because Guru is a much bigger concept. Guru is not simply a teacher. He is not only imparting the knowledge or training to the disciples, but he is much beyond. He is friend, philosopher, and guide, and that is what we look for in a coach. Because coach is a very big concept. It is hand holding, it is guiding, it is consoling whenever the coach is in a fix, and so on and so forth. So it has a very deep meaning, and the issue of having internal coach or external coach, that's a big debate. And as you rightly said, it depends on the situation. So the decision depends on situation. So anyway, having said that, I am really grateful to both the speakers for throwing light on this important subject, and the time of 45 minutes is too short to discuss anything in detail on this subject. But nevertheless, thanks to you for designing your session in such a manner that all important aspects have been touched upon. I, on behalf of ESTD Delhi chapter's managing committee, consisting of Mr. Mukesh Jain, our chairperson, our treasurer, Mr. Arpit Suri, Madam Pritima, the coordinator for evening talks, Mr. Yashwant Chauhan, our honorary secretary, Mr. Ajay Sahu, the most important person, and others who made this session lively. To name a few, Dr. R.S. Dabas was there. In the latter half, he left the meeting, maybe due to some urgent reason. Dr. Y.N. Kaushal, and we had with us Shivani Chawla, Mr. M.S. Madan, Mr. Kanaya Chaudhary, Mr. P. Mohan Nair, Rajni Hams, Reena Deepa Srivastav, and others who actively participated. They were very carefully listening to the session. So I again express my sincere gratitude and thanks to both the speakers, and definitely look forward to having you with us in Delhi chapter, ISTD Delhi chapter, for having your valuable views on this important subject and other subjects as well. Thank you very much. I think Brian is a guitar lover, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I played music for a long time, so a big guitar fan.
That's a very good thing. Yes, one should have some hobby in life,
Yep.
It is not only your profession which matters. Your hobbies also do matter a lot. And
That's
that is
exactly
also
right.
a part of, and that's also a part of coaching. The coaches need to be told.
Yes.
All right, so thank you very much. With this, Mr. Jain, would you like to make any announcement?
Yeah, we are having our annual general meeting on 31st July on Zoom at 6 o'clock. We have already sent the notice to all the members, and it is available on our website also. Tomorrow, we are also organizing a program with the Nagpur, Pune, Bhopal, Aurangabad chapters. It's on personal branding, the art and science of marketing yourself by Dr. Sanjay Arora. So you are requested to please attend the same. It is available on our website, istddaily.in. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you. Namaste.
So
Thank
thank
you,
you
and
once
good night,
again,
everyone.
all.
Thank you all. Thank
Dr.
you.
Rajagopalan
We
and
totally
Dr.
enjoyed.
Brian.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
you
so
guys
much,
so
ma'am.
much.
Sir. Yeah.
Most welcome. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Good night, Ji. Good night. Namaskar.
Yeah.
Good night. See you guys.
Right.
Thank you, Dr. Brian.
Thank you.
Thank you, Usha Ji.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you. Pleasure meeting you all. We'll stay in touch.
Yeah, we'll be in
surely.
touch and we'll organize more programs.
Sure, sir. Sure. We are ready. We are
I'll request Dr. Shahu to